you just never know how the board's going to fall. And, from this first couple, there's a couple picks ahead of us that we didn't expect. That wasn't how we predicted it. I don't think anybody predicted that.
That was Sean Johnson, the Twins' vice president of amateur scouting, a guy who's been in the organization for something like 20 years. What's up? This is Tom Froming. The channel is TF Twins. We're going to discuss this draft class, give you some of my thoughts and reactions. But first, let's just roll right into some of Brooks Lee. Again, as Johnson had mentioned, this was a guy they did not think they had a shot at drafting. He was really a consensus around the top 5. And of course, the Twins picked 8th. Some things happened early in the draft where some guys who were not expected to be drafted as high went. And Lee falls down to the Twins. They were ecstatic. Have to be. This is a guy who not only was a very highly regarded prospect for this year's draft, he was actually one of the guys, there's all these, way too early draft rankings that come out now for next year's draft. Well, you can look back a year ago, and Brooks Lee was one of the guys at the top of this year's draft, in the top 5 for most people. So it's not like he's some kind of pop-up prospect. He's a very known entity who's been on the radar for a very long time. So this was a great get for the Twins. Let's learn some more about Brooks Lee.
I think for me, Brooks Lee is probably the best pure college hitter in this class. If you're just looking at his bat-to-ball skills and his advanced approach at the plate, and more walks than strikeouts while at Cal Poly. We talk about bloodlines all the time, and the most fascinating thing is that nature versus nurture. He is a coach on the field because his dad was been his coach for forever. The only thing that held him back was a gruesome injury right out of the gate that he had to work really hard. It almost ended his career before it started, but he's going to hit for average. He's going to hit for power. If I were going to pick a college bat who'll be the first one to get to the big leagues, he's my guy. Talk to any scout about Brooks Lee, the switch-hitting infielder, and the first thing that comes up are his otherworldly bat-to-ball skills. He struck out in just 13.6% of his plate appearances at Cal Poly and made consistent hard contact all summer, especially during a 21-game stretch on the Cape that saw him hit .405, .432, .667 with 6 homers in just 84 at-bats. He can drive the ball from both sides of the plate, and as he's gotten more physical, it's easy to project him having better than average power in the future. That physicality will mean he's very likely to move off of shortstop at the next level, with third the most likely destination to take advantage of his above-average arm. As the son of a coach, he thinks like one on the field and plays like a veteran, giving more certainty that he's going to maximize all of his tools as a pro.
Who are some guys that you look at, watch, and maybe try to pick up things from?
Well, I'm really old school, so Mickey Mantle, and then usually Carlos Beltran now, my best friend. So
I hooked him up with Carlos. You talked to Carlos.
He hooked me up with his numbers, so we've been talking.
It's good to know. You're gonna hit. We all know that. You're gonna hit with power as you continue to grow, but defensively, you're so advanced. And where'd that come from?
Being the fundamental player that I am starts with doing a lot of things over and over again until you have the muscle memory to do it on command.
I like to have a flat swing, so I don't have anything to do with that launch angle or anything like that. So I'm all about just getting hits and hitting the ball hard consistently. And then, once I get stronger, those doubles I hit will turn into home runs, and the singles will turn into doubles like that. So, but it's pretty complicated, and I can go on for hours talking about hitting.
We don't mind.
Yeah, just like my dad. So no matter what, though, I try and keep it pretty simple once I get in the box. And after every single pitch, I'll learn something about what I feel or what that pitcher has to offer, and then I'll go from there and compete.
But like my knee-jerk reaction as to where he probably fits on a Twins prospect list right now is second. So as you saw, the last clip in that little group was me discussing, that was from a live stream during the draft, discussing kind of my knee-jerk where I put Lee as a prospect in the Twins system. And yeah, I'd only put him behind Royce Lewis at this point. This is a nice guy to add to the system. You hear a lot of the reports, and there was in there that he's expected to more than likely move off of shortstop and be a second baseman or a third baseman by the time he reaches the major leagues. Most shortstops are going to have that said about them. Not too concerned about that for now. I'm sure he'll start out his career in the minor leagues as a shortstop and kind of work from there. Not the most athletic guy for that position, but there's there's quite a few guys that make it there. I think I saw Lee mention in one of his interviews, kind of modeling himself after like a Brandon Crawford or a Corey Seager, who are also guys who not really super elite athletes who have stuck at shortstop in the major leagues. And by all accounts, he says it has a very fine arm. So maybe that arm can kind of make up for some of that lack of range. We'll see. So, the Twins certainly will invest everything they can into, playing time and keeping him there to try to make that happen. Even though Lee is not the kind of profile of a guy that I usually would gravitate toward in like a top 10 pick, this still seems like a knockout of the park. And just to add on to that, a bat first, a guy who's not really given to stick at a premium defensive position. I would typically try to go for, pitcher, which this year's draft class was not very attractive in that realm. There was a lot more bats than arms. And then after that, it would be, a shortstop, a center fielder, or a catcher, which, again, Lee, we're not going to totally say he can't play shortstop, but, it's expected that eventually he will move off that position by the time he gets to the major league. The bar is incredibly high to clear to be good enough defensively to be a major league shortstop. But again, we'll see. So, even though this guy isn't kind of my prototypical player that I'd be looking at, seems like he has an incredibly high floor. And as you saw from Jonathan Mayo there, predicting that he'll be the first college bat to reach the major leagues. I mean, you got to love that.
Connor Prielipp missed all of the 2022 season at Alabama, coming back from Tommy John surgery. But his combine bullpen session was another step in the right direction. For the lefty, trying to show teams he is very much the guy scouts thought could be a top pick before he got hurt in 2021. He posted the highest breaking ball spin rate, over 3,000 RPM, with his plus slider, while averaging 93 miles per hour with his sinker. Everything looking a little sharper than his previous bullpen session in front of scouts back on May 23rd.
How comfortable did it help you to see so many people have had Tommy John surgery to give you the confidence you'd come back?
Yeah, for sure. Tommy John, with today's science and technology, it's nothing now. Almost a lot of big leaguers have it, but it's no big deal, really.
Before we let you go, we got to ask you about your home state. We're starting to see a lot of players come out of Wisconsin. What's going on? What's in the water, so to speak?
I guess, yeah, travel ball, most of the Southern kids know, they play year-round. We're starting to get really nice facilities with hitters and GRB, and we're just really starting to catch up a little bit.
So, are you really going to be overly concerned about a guy who's coming off Tommy? Obviously, he missed last year. You could have seen him play a lot more. That's unfortunate. You want to see how a guy competes in addition to just how he throws a bullpen. So it certainly creates some questions, but I don't think I would dock a guy that much who is injured or coming off an injury or whatever, because what are the chances that the guy that you want to take him over is going to get hurt right away anyway? What? The Twins are drafting. They got him. What? I got to see it. Oh, snap. If you were someone who wanted the Twins to get a very high upside pitcher, this is what you wanted. And we talked about him before he got drafted, so that's nice. I'm not just BSing. So again, we're going back to Twins Daily, and this was a consensus ranking combining The Athletic, ESPN, MLB Pipeline, Baseball America, and Prospect Live. So all of those lists. So those are the experts. Those are the guys that know the stuff. And when you combined all their rankings together, Connor Prielipp was the 23rd guy on those rankings. 23rd. So that's 2 of the top 25 guys in this draft class based off of that consensus ranking that the Twins have landed. Wow. Woo! So fair to say I was pretty excited that the Twins landed Connor Prielipp. That was my live reaction during the stream on draft night. I was reading things that were calling this guy, and again, this was not a very good pitching draft, but they were calling this guy possibly the highest upside arm in the entire draft, and the Twins managed to nab him in the second round. There was some speculation out there that the Twins would potentially consider him at number 8 overall, depending on how things went in the draft. So for him to still be out there, for him to land with the Twins, I think clearly there was some signability concerns. Teams were a little scared off, thinking maybe they wouldn't be able to sign Prielipp and he'd go back to Alabama to try to improve his draft stock. I think clearly if the Twins are taking him here, they are going to be signing him. They understand what it's going to take. They were going to take measures from this point on in the draft, which we'll talk about that some more, to make sure that whatever Connor Prielipp's asking price was, they were going to be able to meet it. So I'm just these first two picks, I love the way this draft looks. And I really love the strategy. They kind of had to blow up a bit their numbers 4 through 10 picks in order to, we'll see. We're going to see what happens, but this is kind of what it looks like. In order to sign Connor Prielipp, I'm all for it. If you want to push more of your eggs into, one basket, it seems like it's a risky move, especially when we're talking about a guy who has some injuries in his past. But you know what? Aim for the upside, especially early on. The draft is such a crapshoot. There are so many times that you get nothing or next to nothing out of these guys anyway. Why not shoot for the moon? Why not aim high? And one more thing on Prielipp. They mentioned at the draft combine, which, number one, I think that's a great sign that he went to the draft combine, showing how confident he is in his health, that he had nothing to hide from teams. He wanted to get it all out there. There was a lot of tracking, a lot of metrics that they were evaluating, and one of them was his spin rate. They mentioned he had a slider that had a 3,000 spin rate plus. That is, there's not that many major leaguers that can do that. So that is a very special pitch for him. Again, very excited about that pick. Excited to see how he gets going this year. He's healthy now. So I don't know if the Twins might just want to kind of keep him on the sidelines and limit his workload because, he is still pretty fresh off of Tommy John. Or if we might see him get out there this year in the minor league system. But it's important to note that he was at the draft combine. He's healthy. He's ready to go.
That's why you go to the game and watch batting practice over and over. He can hit it again. Like I said, you go watch me like, man, he's hitting the ball farther than I think he could. So I think he's an aggressive hitter, but also, he doesn't miss a whole lot. Attractive strikeout rate, and all the other things we can do with our analytics, the way we can measure exit velocity and all those things. So there was a lot of good signal, plate discipline. And he's got more strength than you think. Even the underlying metrics, pointed that direction as well.
So nothing against Tanner Schobel in particular, who's an interesting prospect, a guy who certainly hit last year a ton. But this is where things start to lose me a little bit. And it's because something I talked about in the live stream in regard to kind of draft strategy, in my opinion. You don't want to draft based on your major league need. I don't even think you necessarily want to draft too much based on your system need. But I do think you want to build a diverse draft class. You want to have a bunch of different guys playing different positions, different skills for those guys. And Schobel feels a little bit like kind of a poor man's Brooks Lee to me. A guy who was playing shortstop, who was not likely to stick there, kind of a bat-first guy. So, again, that's not to say anything negative about Tanner Schobel in particular. It's just when you're kind of getting guys that might feel a little bit redundant. And it's not that you can't pick two of the same type of player. And to be fair, the Twins seem to have quite a bit of success with this kind of profile. But I would feel better if it was a little bit more diverse. Now, maybe, like we said, Connor Prielipp's probably going to be signed for overslot. We'll see. That's just speculation at this point. And Schobel's expected to sign for a round slot. So, they couldn't go overslot, though, with this pick. Probably more than likely. It would have been difficult to make that happen. So, maybe that takes them out of, some of the best pitchers that were around during this time. Maybe that takes them out of some of the best toolsy shortstops and center fielders and catchers that were going around this time. I don't know. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that one.
In these rounds, you're looking for maybe it's a unique pitch profile or one special pitch where you're trying to, maybe some other things come together as far as an uptick in velocity. And that's one of the things that we have grown to trust with our player development and our pitching people, is they've been able to do that with a lot of pitchers that we've taken over the last few years, which has been awesome to see. So taking pitchers that have some room for optimization is always something in our minds on day 2. Andrew Morris, really good strike thrower. We saw him a lot of strikes, solid pitches across the board. Yeah, we see him as a starter.
So that was Sean Johnson discussing Andrew Morris, the big right-handed pitcher out of Texas Tech that they drafted in the 4th round. He's got a mid-90s fastball. This guy certainly seems like one of the more intriguing guys they drafted after those top 2 picks, as you'd expect. By the way, the Twins lost their 3rd-round pick because of the Carlos Correa signing. In the 5th round, they went with Ben Ross, a guy out of Notre Dame College in Ohio, where he is actually leading the Northwoods League in almost every offensive stat this season so far. So he's having a great summer league performance.
Yeah, he played second for Tennessee, and that's probably his best fit. He runs and throws enough to maybe stand on the left side of the diamond. He certainly throws enough. Really strong performance on one of the best college teams in America. Had a breakout year, obviously. Really good makeup, plays with a lot of energy, super competitive guy who obviously had a great year at Tennessee.
Ortega's another guy where nothing against him. I find him very intriguing, but just kind of maybe seems redundant with Lee and Schobel being drafted, but clearly a pop-up prospect for this year's draft. Very interesting. I guess he has a cannon too, so maybe he'll play some third. In the 7th round, here's kind of where things start to turn toward underslot guys. Kyle Jones from Toledo. That's such a backhanded thing to say, but we'll see what these guys bring. The Twins have been pretty good at identifying some late-round pitchers. Hopefully they can work some magic with these guys. Zebby Matthews, I think the name of this draft class, right? Another senior sign. He's got a low to mid-90s fastball. And, of course, the Twins are a very slider-focused organization, so no surprise that a lot of these guys are very slider-heavy. Cory Lewis, this is the guy you may have heard who throws a knuckleball, not as a primary pitch, but has mixed that in game, so it's an actual usable pitch. So the interesting thing about him is he can really manipulate the baseball if you can command a knuckleball. And then Dalton Shuffield for Texas State. This was one of the better mid-majors in the country. A very good performer last season for them, but another guy that they will probably expect to sign under slot, and that's the last pick in their bonus round.
Hard to find well-rounded catchers, ones that are really good at both things, offense and defense. Taking a guy like Cossetti, who's offensively put up some numbers, and the defense is. There's certainly a lot of traits in there that our player development can work with. So we're really excited about adding him on day 3.
Here come the catchers. So in the 11th round, you saw Sean Johnson discussing Andrew Cossetti, who, as you see, put up some huge numbers. And, the next guy, too, Nate Baez, you could say this about both these guys, bat-first catchers. And I wonder if, with the potential of the automated strike zone coming, if we're going to see maybe that become more of an offensive position. We'll see. 13th round, they went with a pitcher, a right-handed pitcher, C.J. Culpepper, not related to Dante, by the way, a young junior. And then in the 14th round, they take their first high school guy, Omari Daniel. He's expected to go to Oregon and play college ball, but he had Tommy John surgery. They might sign him. Who knows? They're taking a chance on those guys. 15th round, Ben Ethridge, a right-handed pitcher out of Southern Miss, which is a program they've drafted a few guys out of late. 16th round, another high school guy, Jankel Ortiz, a Puerto Rican high schooler. He is expected to more than likely go to Alabama Birmingham, where he has committed. And then the 17th round, Alec Sayre out of Wright State, another incredibly well-performing college bat. As you see there, he put up some huge numbers. And then in the 18th round, Zachary Veen, a left-handed pitcher out of Point Loma. This is not Zach Veen, who went in the first round a couple of years ago. Different dude, but that's if you recognize that name, that might be why. And then 19th round was Garrett McMillan out of Alabama, a guy maybe they saw a little bit more of from scouting Connor Prielipp. Never know. And then the 20th round, they took Corbin Dickerson, who is a high school out of Kentucky. He's expected to go to Louisville, but a guy with a very high profile, and I guess they figured why not. So what's with the Twins drafting these guys out of high school that are expected to go to college and not sign and start their pro career? Well, as Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, once said, everybody has a price. And, if the Twins can end up saving money from signing their top 10 picks, they can kind of reallocate that to the numbers 11 through 20 rounds. Basically, you have your draft pool. Anybody after that you can sign to a certain point, which I believe is $125,000 is the biggest bonus you can give to anybody outside of that, those first 10 rounds, without it counting against your bonus pool. So if you save money on your bonus pool in the first 10 rounds, you can go in excess of that number and devote more money. They actually did this with Edouard Julien, who I think was an 18th round pick, was expected to go back to Auburn. They ended up having enough money to push his way. I think it was over $400,000 to get him to come and start his pro career. And I think that's a decision that appears to have worked out really well for both the team and the player there. So, you know, I think if we're being, you know, completely honest, there's a great chance the Twins don't sign any of those guys. But, you know, they're creating an avenue in which that the door is open there if they can work things out that way. So it's like, you know, especially in the 20th round, you can either draft a guy who you're pretty sure is going to be available as an undrafted free agent. Now you're going to have to compete with other teams potentially. Or you can just draft a pie-in-the-sky guy that you would just love to potentially sign. So, you know, I think that's kind of an interesting wrinkle of draft strategy, which we didn't talk about too much on this video, but if you really want to dig deep into the draft, it's pretty fascinating about that stuff. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Overall, I do really like this draft, even though there's a lot of risk, I feel like. Again, they pushed a lot of their eggs into two baskets, essentially. Of course, there are some other interesting players beyond Lee and Prielipp, but those are kind of by far, in my opinion, the guys that really shine from this draft class. So let me know what you think. Thanks for checking this out. Please consider subscribing for more Twin Stock here on YouTube.